I'm very upset. I'd say extremely upset. I got some information that I wish didn't fall into my lap. So I was a street cop for 20 years. I worked SWAT. I was on the assault team, entry team. I've been in a lot of stuff. And I know I've almost been the victim of friendly fire SWAT training. You know, it happens. I get it. It's just sad. It happens. Trying to collect my thoughts here. I get a little bit upset about this. That in fact there were some armed off-duty deputies, officers inside that did not engage the shooter, that fled out the back through a broken window. It was relayed to me by a reliable, confidential source whom I've known for decades, and that I felt if they had engaged, done their job, Sergeant Helis and a lot of the other victims would be alive today. I know it's been some time since the shooting. I did not sit on this information. The day afterwards, I contacted the Ventura County Sheriff Department. I spoke to who I believe now to be a Captain Garo Kurtijan. And quite frankly, I could tell, it was my impression, I was not the call he wanted to have. I gave my condolences, told him I'm a retired law enforcement officer, a former deputy out there in Ventura County. And I had information to believe that there were officers inside the shooting took place that were armed. And he just, after I got off the phone with this guy, this captain, I'll call him Garo, I just felt it was a smoke screen. I just, they were going to bury it. So I contacted a good friend of mine who was a command staff in law enforcement, who was as upset as I was. I talked to some of my military buddies and other Leo officers. So I asked this good friend of mine if he would make a call, because they're their officer with Ventura PD, so it would give more credibility. This all wasn't coming from one person, and he immediately agreed to do so. Called Ventura PD, gave him the information that I relayed to them, and got some two-striper at the desk and just basically blew him off. He says, yeah, we're aware of this, but we consider them to be heroes. These officers, they help break out windows and people escape out the back. And that just did it. I tried to contact news agencies. You can't get through to anyone. You know, you get voicemails and stuff. And every time I saw a video come out, a press release with this new interim sheriff who wasn't elected, who was appointed by Jeff Dean, who I actually used to work patrol with back in the late 70s at the old East Valley Sheriff Station, I just felt there was a big cover-up. I saw a lot of red flags, because when you have hero officers, departments are going to display them and parade them out right away. And the Chippies officers that made entry with them, there was never their names released, no information. They're not releasing how many shots were fired, nothing. And when I heard a month later that they just released that information, that just sent me over the top. I listened to press conferences where there was one gentleman who I sought out after, Paul Hubel with Crime File News, was asking some hardball questions to the sheriff about the deputies that were inside, if they were armed, or why weren't they armed? Is there a policy prohibiting that? And it was just dodgeball with those questions. And so I reached out to Paul Hubel. I Googled his information, Crime File News, and we spoke. He's also a retired Chicago police officer. And again, I gave him the information I had, and he was on board. He was equally upset. They may not be a legal obligation for them to act, but if they went in there and they were armed, they have a moral obligation. They have a duty to the community and to their fellow citizens. And they raised their hand and swore an oath. I don't care how long you have on the job to protect and to serve. And I have no use for cowards in something like this. And it's had me fired up for quite a while. And I'm not the only one. Several days after the shooting, Oxnard Police Chief Scott Whitney on November 13th had a press briefing. And in that briefing, he said something that to me it just made my jaw hit the deck. He stated that they had 2 on-duty Oxnard police officers inside the club when this shooting happened.
We had 2 police officers that were on duty that were inside the club when it happened.
That means they had an additional 2 more armed officers inside that did not engage the gunmen. Later, I understand, I haven't been able to see the retraction, and I knew that was coming. Anybody with a mind knew that was going to happen. The city council ever got a hold of them are basically going, what are you saying? What did you just say? So there was some kind of, he changed his statement. Usually when you go to a press briefing, something of that magnitude, you've got all your ducks ordered pretty much, and you know what your officers are doing and who was there. And he commented, they rolled like 7 additional units down there without even being requested. My condolences go out to the family. It just breaks my heart. I'm a father. To the victims, to the first responders out there that did their job and arrived and have got to deal with that mess and have those images in their head and stuff. And to the chippies that went in there, God bless them. Thoughts and prayers to them. I want them to pull through and do good and know that, it's just sometimes stuff happens. When you put yourself in harm's way, stuff's going to happen. So what you have to look at is what is in that officer or deputies, what was in their heart, what was in their mind, what they were trying to do. And that's for any street cop, anyone who's been in a lot of life and death situations, that's what we look at.